So, hello. Good evening ulit sa inyo. So, another discussion naman for our class pero this time for BAPE 6 na. Special Transactions. So, yung last video natin was for this subject was the construction contract. And as you know, or as we know, napakahaba niya. Sobrang haba ng construction contract. Now, pagdating ito sa new topic natin na consignment sales, in contrast naman siya, napakaikli ng topic na to. Tapos kung titingnan yung book nyo, maikli lang talaga siya. Ngayon, baka yung iba sa inyo iniisip na, Sir, bakit yung sa BAPE 7 natin, nung separate financial statements, hindi mo ginawa yung kahit short din yung pero dito sa consignment sales, gumawa ka ng video. Kaya wala lang, trip ko lang. Hindi, joke lang. Pagod ako that time, so hindi na ako nagawa. And neglective, di naman ganun kahirap yung topic na yun. Hindi rin man ganun kahirap ang topic ng consignment sales. Na if I can remember correctly, nung board exam namin, ang lumabas lang sa consignment sales, if tama ang pagkakalala ko, was one theory question lang eh. Maikli lang talagang consignment sales. And additional note na rin, yung sa last videos ko, medyo napansin nyo na may buzzing sound pag hindi ako nagsasalita, pag idle yung zzz, diba? So ngayon, for this video, inayos ko na yon, i-edit ko na sa software. Ngayon ko lang na-notice eh. Sorry doon. Baka magpapalit ako ng mic. Anyways, let's continue with our discussion for BAPE 6. We are now going to discuss consignment sales. Don't worry, maikli lang naman tong topic na to. Kahit nga hindi nyo napanoorin tong video na to eh. So, itong learning objectives natin for consignment sales. Una, define a consignment arrangement. Pangalawa, apply the principles of PFRS 15, which is the revenue recognition from contract with customer sa atin, if tamang pagkakalala ko ng title, PFRS 15. Tandaan nyo, ang PFRS 15 superseded many previous standards, diba? Yung standards ng for construction contract, for franchise contract, which for accounting for franchise agreements on the franchisor, yun yung next topic natin. And ito rin, consignment sales superseded PFRS 18. So PFRS 18, PFRS 15 ang pina-follow natin ngayon. Panahon namin, hindi pa to implemented pero nandyan na siya. Kwento ko naman to dati pa. Ngayon, para sa inyo, sure na sure, ito ang lalabas sa board exam, PFRS 15. So, ito, consignment arrangement. Now, before natin ito basahin, I know na alam nyo na yung concept ng consignment, di ba? Sa inventory, sa intermediate accounting nyo pa lang yan, sa FAR pa mismo, inventory, yung mga consigned goods. Na kung saan, yung mga consigned goods na yan, kahit na yung possession is nakay-consignee, recap lang natin yung previous accounting nyo, kahit na yung goods na yun is nakay-consignee, nire-record pa rin ni consignor yung goods na yun sa kanyang inventory. Sinasama niya pa rin, di ba? If you can still remember, dapat nyo talaga matandaan, basic na lang yun sa inventory. So, with this, yung arrangement nila na yun is called consignment. Now, ano ba tong consignment arrangement? Well, under consignment arrangement, an entity called the consignor delivers goods to another party, tawag natin sa kanya consignee, who undertakes to sell the goods to end customers on behalf of the consignor. As you can see here, I know napagdaanan nyo na rin yung yung last law subjects nyo, which was sales agency credit transactions, no? If I can remember correctly, sales agency and credit transaction. Now, on the agency part, on the agency topic, ito na yun, si principal, the relationship between the principal and the agent. Si consignor yung principal, si consignee yung agent. Kung saan si consignor, binigyan niya ng within their arrangement, ang pag-usapan nila na consignee will act as his agent to sell the goods to the end customers on behalf of the consignor. So yan, consignment arrangement, principal agent relationship yan. So, ilang beses ko na ito nasabi, di ba? Lahat mga topic natin sa accounting, connected yan sila sa isa't isa. So, the consignor recognize revenue only when the consignee sells the consigned goods to end customer. Bakit yun? Kasi, bakit at this time lang na si consignor nagre-record ng revenue? Di ba? If you can still also remember yung consigned goods natin sa sa intermediate accounting natin sa inventory. Nagre-record lang, tinatanggal lang si consigned goods sa inventory kapag nabenta na, then nire-record na siya sa revenue. So, bakit ganun nangyayari? Because by selling those goods to the end customer, the owner, which is the consignor, relinquish control over those goods. He relinquish control. Kasi tandaan nyo, the control and the ownership of the consigned goods remains with the consignor. Si consignee, nasa kanya lang yung possession, pero hindi siya yung may-ari. Nasa iyo nga siya, pero hindi naman sa sayo. Nasa iba naman ang puso niya. So yun, ganun yun. Si consignor, he owns, he controls the goods. Yung kay consignee, he only possesses it for the main reason to undertake the selling of such consigned goods. So the moment that those consigned goods are yung control niya, yung ownership niya is transferred to a third party, in this case the end customers, then that's the time that the consignor will recognize revenue kasi it is a perfect sale. Nabenta sa outside parties. Ngayon, consigned goods are included in the consignor's inventory. No? Alam niyo na yan, until they are sold to end customer. Now, itong memo, when the consignor transfers the possession of the goods, of the consigned goods to the consignee, wala silang i-record na journal entries. Tandaan yan. Memorandum entries lang yan. Memorandum entries lang para sa transfer of possession. Walang journal entry. Ngayon, siyempre, in connection with that, may mga expenses na kailangang gastusin or may mga costs na in relation to that transfer, in relation to that agreement na may incur. So, lahat ba ng cost na yun, i-record mo as cost to the inventory or expense mo? Depende. Yung freight and other incidental costs, ibig sabihin mga necessary yan, of transferring consigned goods to the consignee, such as transportation and insurance, form part of the cost of the consigned goods. So, yung mga freight and other incidental, basically yung mga necessary costs yan. On the other hand, yung mga repair, storage, repair for damages, storage costs, and other maintenance costs are charged as expense. So, ito, freight and incidental costs, magiging part siya ng cost ng consigned goods. Itong sila, expense yan sila. Ngayon, commission is recognized as expense by the consignor and as income by the consignee. So, basically, itong commission, yan yung fee ni yan yung consideration na marireceive ni consignee for their consignment arrangement. Kasi contract yan Yung kay consignee, kaya siya pumasok sa contract, sa consignment arrangement na yan, because of the consideration of a commission fee. So, yun na marireceive niya, kaya income yan. Siyempre, si consignor, kailangan bayaran si consignee. Kasi pinabenta niya yung goods niya yung consigned goods. So, simple lang yan. Napakadali ng topic na to, di ba? So, ito, revenue recognition. When the consigned goods are sold to end customer, third parties, the consignor recognizes revenue at the gross amount of consideration, i.e. or meaning the sale price agreed with the consignee. So, anong pinagkasunduan nila? Si consignee naman, magre-recognize siya ng revenue based on the commission or fee to which he is entitled. Let's say, 20% of the sale, 30% of the sale. Yun yung commission fee niya. Yun yung i-recognize na revenue. So ito, konting illustration tayo. Nasa book rin naman ito ni Zeus. So si ABC ko daw, consigns goods costing 220 and with a total sale price of 390,000 to XYZ. So si ABC yung yung consignor, the principal, si XYZ naman yung consignee, the agent. No, si XYZ will be entitled to a 20% commission based on its sales. So 20% daw yung kanyang commission. Ngayon, ito, consigned goods, ibig sabihin nag-transfer na siya. As you can see here, walang journal entry. Memorandum entry lang. Ang ilalagay, from ABC company, he transferred to XYZ this amount of goods to be able to sell them, to act as his agent, to undertake the task of selling such goods. The amount of goods, etc. etc. Memorandum entry lang yun. Walang journal yan. Ngayon, ito na. Si XYZ Incorporated sells consigned goods costing 55,000 for 100,000. So, nabenta niya ng 100,000. Yun yung sales niya. ABC ko is not notified of the sale. So, anong gagawin? Ito magkakaroon ka ng journal entry. However, for the consignor ABC ko, wala siyang i-record. Bakit? Hindi siya na-notified. Tsaka lang yan magre-record kapag na-notify na. Now, what if na-notify siya, sir? Ano ang journal entry? Nandito sa baba. Receivable from Z or XYZ, 80,000. Bakit? Kasi itong 80,000, yan lang yung marireceive niya out of 100,000. Bakit? Kasi yung 20,000, commission yan. Commission expense. Yan yung entitled fee ni XYZ. Consignee siya eh. So, and then the revenue is 100,000 kasi yung base. So, you can consider that as a selling cost, di ba? Now, in practice, it is uncommon that the consignor is notified of each sale as those sales occur. Bakit? Kasi napaka-hassle yan eh. Every time magkakaroon ng sale, paano pag voluminous yung product? Voluminous, maramihan. Alangan every time magkakaroon ng sale, notify mo. Hindi. Kasi hassle yan. Inefficient ang tawag dyan. So, more commonly, the consignor receives notice of the consignments or the consignee sales on scheduled dates such as weekly man yan, monthly, quarterly, depending on the arrangement. Pangit yan kapag every time magkakaroon ng sale, so magkakaroon ng 5 pesos na sale sa chichirya mo, kinonsign lang sa inform mo agad siya, no? Hindi. Inefficient yan. Inefficient. So, ito naman, kay XYZ, ito ang re-record niya pag nagkaroon ng sale. Cash, 100. Or accounts receivable man yan. Kasi nakabenta siya. Then, commission income, kasi of course, entitled siya dyan eh, siya nagbenta. Then, payable to ABC, kasi kailangan niyang i-remit yan kay consignor. Ito naman, XYZ Incorporated, si consignee, makes the weekly remittance of sales proceed net of commission to ABC. So, dito no entry siya kasi not notified. Ngayon, na-notify na si ABC. Kasi ang usapan doon nila is weekly. Weekly yung notification. So with that, ito yung i-record ng XYZ, ng ABC, as the consignor. And, syempre, nagbenta siya ng goods eh. So may kalakip yang recording ng cost of goods sold inventory. Di ba? Ito naman si XYZ, kailangan niya nang i-remit yung proceeds ng sale net of commission. Siyempre, ikikip niya yung 20,000. So, 80 yung i-remit niya kay ABC, consignor. So, napaka-basic, di ba? Kahit di nyo napakinggan tong napaka-basic ng consignment sales. Ito naman, theoretical notes lang for under PFRS 15 when we're talking about principal versus agent considerations, the relationship between the two. Basically, paano mo ma-determine na itong tao na to is a principal or agent? Bakit kailangan yung ma-determine? Kasi basahin muna natin. PFRS 15 provides for the following additional guidance in accounting for consignment sales. Now, when another party is involved in providing goods or services to a customer, the entity shall determine whether it is acting as a principal or an agent. So, may third party daw. And not the end customer, but rather, a third party that is involved in the providing of goods or services. Paano natin i-visualize yan? Ganito. Saan yung pointy? Ito si entity. Entity yan. Ngayon, ito naman si customer. So yan delivery of goods or services. Ngayon, ang sabi dito, meron tayong tinatawag na another party. Yung another party na yan yung kabit. Joke lang. Yung another party na yan, involved siya sa pag-provide ng goods or services. Now, since dalawa sila, Ngayon, ano tong si entity? Siya ba yung principal sa transaction na to? Or siya yung agent? Doon na nagkakaroon ng question. Dapat kailangan ng guidance para ma-determine sa transaction na to kung saan meron tayong third party, another party, na involved sa pag-provide ng goods or services. So magkakalituhan na. Sino dyan sa kanila si principal? Sino dyan sa kanila ang agent? So PFRS 15 has provided us with some guidance on how to determine which of which. Sino si principal, sino si agent. Kasi alam naman natin, kaya nagkaroon ng advanced accounting, di ba? Kasi napaka-complex and dynamic na ng ating transactions in the economy, in the market. So kaya nandyan si advanced accounting in order to cope up with those complexities in transactions. And isa na to dito. Paano nagkaroon? Hindi na kasi basta linear, oh. Mayroon ng involved na third party, so paano ng determination yan? So ito, si entity daw, mako-consider nating principal if it controls the goods or service before the good or service is transferred to the customer. Oh, may control, oh, kasi alam naman natin, yung owner ang may control. Controls the goods or services before the goods or services are even transferred to the customer. However, take note, the entity is not necessarily a principal if it only obtains legal title of a product only momentarily, saglit lang, before legal title is transferred to the customer. So parang dumaan lang sa kanya, pero wala siyang control over that. Gets nyo? Napadaan lang. From right, pinasa sa left hand niya, pinasa niya sa right hand niya, diniliver niya sa customer, transfer niya. So momentary lang yon. So hindi yung mako-consider as a principal. Asan ako pa principal? Ngayon, a principal may personally satisfy a performance obligation or it may engage another party, for example, a subcontractor. Like for example, yung expressway. If you can see, if you're watching news, yung bumagsak na na girder sa expressway. Si SM yung principal doon, pero nag-hire siya ng subcontractor para itayo yung expressway. No, yun. O kasi, wala lang. Share lang as an example. To satisfy some or all of the performance of the obligation on its behalf. So, this is another example of a principal-agent relationship. Instead siya yung gagawa, mag-assign na lang siya ng isang tao or ng isang entity para yun ang gumawa. Subcontractor tawag doon. Anyways, when the performance obligation is satisfied, the principal recognizes revenues at the gross amount of consideration. So, gross amount ang recognize sa revenue. So, yan. Consideration kapag principal ang entity. On the other hand, the entity can be considered as an agent if its performance obligation is to arrange lang the provisions of goods or services by another party. When the performance of obligation is satisfied, makaka-receive lang or magre-recognize lang si agent ng commission or fee as a revenue kung saan entitled siya. So yan, makikita nyo na. Si principal may control sa goods or services bago na transfer sa customer. Except when may legal title lang siya momentarily. And si principal pwedeng mag-assign or sa mismo si principal pwede ring pwede siya mismo yung magpe-perform ng obligation or mag-a-assign na lang siya ng subcontractor or another agent to satisfy the obligation. Principal yan, and he will recognize the gross amount. Then ito sa agent naman, ang labot niya lang sa buhay niya is to arrange the provision of goods or services by another party. So, back up lang siya, tagatulong. Yun. So, ito yung final guidance para ma-determine natin if si entity ba in this transaction is an agent or a principal. Because, bakit mahalagang malaman yon? Kasi tingnan nyo dito, yung pag-recognize sila ng revenue. Si principal, nagre-recognize siya ng revenue at gross amount of the consideration. Si agent, nagre-recognize siya ng revenue, commission or fee lang. So, kaya mahalagang ma-determine itong si entity, ano ba siya? Principal or agent? So ito, the following are indicators that an entity is an agent and therefore does not control the goods or services before it is provided. So ito, nagbigay ng guidance. Nagbigay ng guidance na kung saan, pag na-check mo to sila, you can say that that entity is an agent. So una, another party is primarily responsible for fulfilling the contract. Meaning, itong si another party, siya yung primarily liable. Si entity na agent, subsidiarily liable lang siya. 'Di ba? Primarily liable sa baba nun, pag hindi na-satisfy yung primary liability, kung sinong subsidiarily liable, siya yung next in line. Yun. Obligation and contracts yan. The entity does not have inventory risk before or after the goods have been ordered by a customer during shipping or on return. Inventory risk of loss, risk of deterioration, risk of damage. Yung owner, yung may control over the inventory, siya yung nag-incur ng loss. Yung agent hindi. Hindi naman kasi siyang may-ari. Letter C, the entity does not have discretion in establishing prices for the other party's goods or services, and therefore the benefit that the entity can receive from those goods or services is limited. Siyempre wala siyang control eh. Ngayon, the entity's consideration in the form of a commission, obviously, in the form of a commission or fee, kung saan entitled siya. Kasi ang isang principal, recognized revenue at gross amount of the consideration. And lastly, the entity is not exposed to credit risk for the amount receivable from a customer in exchange for the other parties goods or services. So another take on risk. Kasi yung principal lang nagtitake ng risk dyan. So yan, checklist yan. So para mas maintindihan natin, illustration tayo, sample. Saan yan? Illustration 1. Chapico, kung tinype ko lang sana ito, tinamad siguro ko. Chapico operates a website that enables customer to purchase goods from a range of suppliers who deliver the goods directly to the customer. Shopee. Shopka. Ngayon ko lang na-gets, kaya pala Shopee. Parang Shopee. So yan, online platform yan. When a good is purchased via the website, Shopee, salamat Shopee, is entitled to a 10% commission based on the sales price. Shopee's website facilitates payment, so yan, platform ang tawag dyan, between the supplier and the customer at the price set by the supplier. Shopee has no further obligation to the customer after arranging the sale. So, without looking to the next slide, ano to si Shopee? Agent or principal? Drum roll. Agent siya. Na-check niya lahat dito. Another party, primarily liable. Yung mga seller yon or mga suppliers. Wala siyang inventory list kasi hindi naman siya at the first place hindi niya nahawakan yung inventory. Wala siyang possession. Wala siyang discretion sa establishing ng prices. Saan yun dito? Facilitates saan yun? Entitled lang siya sa 10% commission of the sales price. Yun ito sa baba. Customer at the price set by the supplier. Entity's consideration is the form of commission. At dito. Not exposed to credit risk, amount permissible exchange for the parties goods or services. Has no further obligation. Na-check niya lahat. So since na-check niya lahat, agent siya. Agent si Shopee. Salamat Shopee. Kahit hindi natin ito binasa. Because it does not have control over the goods or services provided by the customer, Shopee's performance obligation is to arrange the transfer of goods and services from the supplier to the customer. So when his performance of the obligation is satisfied, Shopee recognizes only a commission, the agreed commission. So basic. So ito naman, illustration 2 tayo. Si Exco daw install CCTV, closed-circuit television for customers. So yun, si Exco yung tama mo. Install CCTV. So sa mismo nagpa-perform ng obligation. Pero sabi mo ba agad na principal yan? Hindi. Kasi baka subcontractor lang siya or which is an agent. So let's continue reading. Exco does not maintain inventory of CCTV. Instead, when a customer contracts Exco purchases the CCTV from a supplier and installs it at the customer's premises. So yun, siya yung nag-install. Bibilihan siya ng supplier. Exco chooses the supplier. However, the CCTV purchase must meet the customer specifications. Otherwise daw, the customer can reject it. Exco negotiates the contract price with the customer. So yan o. So marami nang marami nang na-ekis sa checklist natin. Marami nang na-ekis. So continue tayo. Therefore, Exco's profit is based on the difference between the contract price and the purchase price of the CCTV less the labor and other materials overhead relating to the installation. So, gross amount of the consideration. Hindi lang basta commission fee. O yan, dami nang na-ekis sa checklist natin. Half of the contract price is due upon signing the contract and the balance due after the installation is complete. So, in case of factory defects, the customer can seek remedy from the supplier under the supplier's warranty. However, si Exco is responsible for any faults relating to the configuration and installation of the CCTV. So, marami na tayong naanong checklist dito. Another primarily responsible for filling the contract. Hindi yan, kasi si Exco mismo. Inventory risk during shipping. Entity discretion, establishing prices. Exco, saan nag-establish prices Hindi yung supplier ng CCTV. For the performance of the obligation. Consideration for commission, hindi. Gross amount. Between the contract price and the purchase price, CCTV less the labor and other materials. Gross amount of the consideration yan. Entity exposed sa credit risk. Ito, for any faults relating to configuration and installation CCTV. So, without looking at the next slide, you can already say that Exco is a principal. Dito na. Sinabi pa dito. Taran, checklist. Na-ekis lahat ng checklist natin. So, when the performance obligation is satisfied, Exco recognizes revenue at the gross amount of the contract price negotiated with the customer. So, yan yung discussion natin for consignment sales. Napakadali lang. Ba't pa tayo gumawa ng video? Kasi trip ko lang. So, with that, okay, ending na tayo. Before that, yung para sa natawag doon, yung consignment natin for this topic, yung mga hindi nag-participate sa JPA days natin ang mag-answer. Yung mga nag-participate, no need to answer, perfect na kayo ulit. Itong application of concepts, theoretical lang naman to sa sa exercises, sa classroom discussion, post ko na rin lang. So with that, good night, bye-bye, love you.